I'm Sharon Bill. Welcome to my Music Theory Tuition series where I work with you step by step through the ABRSM Discovering Music Theory grades. I'll work through every single exercise and explain everything you need to know. You can access information about the books I have available to help you on my website. Go to sharonbill.com. For advert-free and longer lessons, you can become a patron at patreon.com/SharonBill. If you can give me a like, that would be super, and please do subscribe to my channel to stay updated. You can support this channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/SharonBill. We move now to the percussion family, and we look at percussion instruments, which basically is sort of instruments that produce a sound when struck. Interestingly, the piano is a percussion instrument because the mechanism causes hammers to strike the strings inside the cabinet. However, it's not an orchestral instrument, and here we're only looking at percussion instruments found in the orchestra. And they fall into two categories, definite pitch and indefinite pitch. Definite pitch you could think of as being tuned, as in you could play pitch notes on it, creating different almost melodies. In fact, some percussion instruments that are definite pitch, like the glockenspiel or the tubular bells, you can play very complex melodies. And then we have indefinite pitch or untuned, where we just kind of get a crash or an effect. For example, like the tambourine, the maracas, the gong, all sorts of things like that. And of the four instruments we're going to be looking at, three of them are indefinite or untuned. The only one that is tuned or definite pitch is the timpani, sometimes known as the kettle drum. And this is a great big floor standing drum. It's of massive size, and oftentimes it's tuned to the tonic and the dominant to create an effect. The side drum is a smaller sort of snare drum. This one is featured in Ravel's Bolero, which I mentioned about the general instruments of the orchestra, and it's got the same rhythm on the snare drum or the side drum, repeated over and over and over and over without any pause throughout the whole piece. I know my son's played that in the past, and yeah, I think it sounds exhausting. You know, if you listen to Ravel's Bolero, just give the percussionist a sort of a sign of your appreciation over the waves, as it were, because I think that's quite an undertaking. And then we have just the bass drum, which is just an indefinite pitch here. The cymbal is an indefinite pitch. That's the flat metal thing that is struck with a beater, or they can be clashed together. Now I notice here that we've got the suggestion that timpani players usually have 2, 3 or more timpani, so they can quickly move from one note to another. If only that were the case in amateur orchestras. I do remember that my son played a really ancient timp, and the orchestra could only have this one timp, and of course he needed a tonic and a dominant, and it hadn't got a foot pedal. It was such an ancient thing, so he had to turn the pegs on the side of the drum to tighten or loosen the skin to create the different sound in pitch. And he had to do it whilst the rest of the orchestra was playing in the middle of the piece, and just not silently, but really quietly tap with his ear next to the skin whilst the orchestra was doing its thing, and get it tuned to the next note quickly before it was his time to play again. And I say that purely as a way of reminding you that the timpani is definite pitch, it's tuned. And if you think of my son's plight as he's trying to desperately tune this timp in the middle of a piece while it's all going on around him, that should help you to remember that that's the odd one out that's tuned. If we can make these instruments as memorable as possible, placing them into context, listening to orchestral pieces, and, you know, just making it applicable to practical life, then we can remember it better, can't we? So that's the percussion family. So let's just turn the page and let's see what we can remember. So I do recommend that you use this as a little revision exercise. Test yourself, and then we can check it through together. So I'm hoping you've had a go, or press pause, have some revision, and then come back to the video when you've just looked a few things up and looked at a few images and listened to a few pieces. So I'm hoping that you're ready to take this as a test, and you've done so, and now we can check through these answers together. Is it true or false that the side drum produces notes of indefinite pitch? That's an untuned percussion. That's true. The only tuned one we're dealing with now is the timpani. Do cymbals produce notes of definite pitch? No, they don't, because we've just established it's the timps that are the definite pitch. We just crash cymbals together. I say just, I don't mean that in a derisory sense at all. Is it true or false that the timpani cannot play definite pitches? Well, it can, so that's false. Do percussion instruments play using a bow? No, that's the string family, and so that's false. Is it true or false that the clarinet uses the bass clef? That's false. The woodwind instrument that uses the bass clef is the bassoon. Is it true or false that the flute is the highest member of the brass family? Well, it's a bit of a red herring there, sneaky question. The flute is the highest member of a family, but it's the woodwind family. And although you blow woodwind and brass instruments, they are a different musical family. Woodwind instruments use keys, whereas the brass family has valves or sliders. And so that's false. Is it true that senza sword and sans sordine mean the same thing? It does. Senza and sans is without. Sword is short for sordine or sordines. That's Italian. That's French. And they both mean without the mute. So that's true. Now then, can the double bass play more than one note simultaneously? In actual fact, they can. It's called double stopping, where you can play two notes. All string instruments can do double stopping. There is something called triple stopping as well, but generally speaking, after double stopping, because of the stretch, you have to arpeggiate it. However, yes, in principle, that is true. Is it true that the bassoon and the trombone both use the bass clef? Yes, that is true. That's the lowest woodwind, and that's of the lower of the brass, both using bass clef. And then just a little test here. We can match up these descriptions with the correct instrument. So which string instrument plays lower notes than the cello? And that's the double bass. And you know, you can remember that. I mean, do look at a picture of them, look at them in an orchestral setting, you'll see that the double bass is kind of massive compared to the cello. I wouldn't say actually double the size, but nevertheless that will help you to remember it. Now, which percussion instrument plays in definite pitch? That's tuned, and hopefully my little story will have helped you to remember it's the timpani, otherwise known as the kettle drum. Which woodwind instrument uses the bass clef? That's the bassoon. That's the bass of the woodwind family, as it were. Just a clever little coincidence there. Is it coincidence? I wonder. And so we should be left with the viola as the string instrument that uses the alto clef. And there we go. I hope this is helpful to your studies. Please do like and subscribe to stay updated. If you'd like to support this channel, you can buy me a coffee, and for advert-free lessons, you can become a patron. Do visit my website where you'll find many resources available to help you. Visit sharonbill.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.